Irish Derby time. Willow, you were working at Newmarket on Saturday, and you've no doubt watched this a few times since. What was your first reaction when they crossed the line before you've sat down and analysed it and thought about it?
It was one of the most ridiculous horse races I think I've ever seen. It was my first reaction.
Okay, and is it still your belief?
I'll put some numbers to it. It's amazing, actually, Angus, how people say stuff like, it'd be fascinating to find out what the sectionals are when all they've got to do is click a stopwatch at the 3-pole to unravel the great mysteries of the turf. But no one in the jury did it, clearly.
I'm just going to stop. We're just going to highlight. Here he is.
Right.
Padraig Beggy out in front on Sovereign, making all, winning his second Derby. Right. Anthony Van Dyke in second place.
Carry on. This is the key.
Yes, it is.
This is the key
Norway
thing.
third. Mad Moon, the keen Mad Moon in fourth place. And
Slope.
Broom missing the break.
The key is that the jockeys in this little pack here off the pace reported that the pace was various things like blistering and tremendously fast. In fact, it was actually slower than par. So what that says about Chris Hayes' judgment of pace, I'm not quite sure. But he's not alone. He's with some very good riders, Ryan Moore and others. So let's not pick out any individual. But the facts of the matter are, and arguing about whether this horse stole the race is a bit like arguing about gravity. There are facts out there which can easily be measured, and if you measure the last 3 furlongs, you get that the last 3 furlong tempo was just under or just about 105% of the race speed. So Sovereign, despite racing in a clear lead, covered the last 3 furlongs 5% quicker
than he did the rest of the race.
Right, so that tells you immediately that the ones in behind are travelling way slower than they need to do to run a good time. And in fact, the actual, if you did that line that would represent even pace, it's kind of like here, where these jockeys' colours are. Like,
in other words, Padraig Beggy's done a great job.
Yes.
In terms of winning the race.
It's here. So even pace is about here.
Okay, let's
frame that up.
Hang on, here's. So you want even pace about?
Yeah, at least probably.
About there.
At least.
That didn't work.
Try it again.
Try it again. Where? Do you want it about
further forward? Yeah.
About there.
Right. So
even pace, something like that.
Anything behind that is travelling not as fast as it should be, and so these riders are basically going way too slow. And because there's another element at play, which is that the crop of 3-year-old middle distance colts, represented by this bunch in behind, who came out the Derby first, second, and fourth, are in that pack in behind. They're just not very good at horse racing.
Well, I wanted to make this point because I think we've got horses in behind. Firstly, Anthony Van Dyke, who's run pretty well on the numbers. He's fired quite a big figure compared to what he's done previously. He's run all right. Mad Moon's pulled too hard and not got home.
Yeah.
He was too keen early on, and Broom completely fluffed the start and was never involved. So the best horse to come out of the Derby, in my opinion, it'll be Japan, won't it? After the figure that he fired at Royal Ascot. But
Japan didn't get the run of the race in the Derby. He was very wide, made his effort into a hot pace, and he's since improved sharply. But on the day, I think Anthony Van Dyke did enough to win, to say that he would have won if he'd run at even fractions with Sovereign. Sovereign had
Why do you say that then?
Because I think that you can't be sure about it, because when you start to upgrade horses which are fast, that run slower than the par, you're into non-linear territory. You're having to use squared terms in these physics equations, and that therefore it becomes slightly a matter of guesswork. It doesn't really matter in a sense. What the facts of the matter are that whatever should have happened, we know what did happen, which was that Sovereign was the closest to even pace in the race, and thereby derived a large advantage over a bunch of horses who actually I think are quite limited by the normal standards of the Derby. And I was speaking to Ollie Bell and Francesco Cumani about this. He says name dropping, and Francesco was saying that in Australia they say that when a field finishes close together, it's testament to an even pace. And that obviously is true, it's very true. But also, I did a study where it showed that over 25 years, the closer the Derby field finished together, the fewer winners come out the race. You know, people think that's one of the old chestnuts, one of the old cliches, but it's not. When a field finishes bunch, that's telling you that the members of the population are closer to the mean of the population than they are outliers, because outliers are more spread out. Think of a bell curve of human heights, right? Imagine so you've got everyone that's around about 5'9" in the middle, and then you go up to sort of basketball players. Well, if you were to select 6 random members from that population and find they were all within a couple of inches of each other, that's evidence that what you're looking at is the centre of the population, because you just wouldn't find them at the outline. You'd have bigger differences in height, so because there are fewer individuals, and therefore your choice would be more random. And so the Derby, I think it was overrated by most handicappers just because they want to put a big figure on the Derby. The speed figure Timeform produced was what? 1:0?
Very, very modest. But under 110 anyway.
Yeah, the time of the race. You've got to upgrade it for the way it was run slightly, but as Simon Rowland said, it wasn't a massively outlying pace in the Derby. It was a little bit slower than it should have been, but not greatly. So couple that with the race time and the fact that the field finished bunched and this Irish Derby, and what you're looking at is probably the best members of the crop just didn't run the Derby, and the likes of Sangarius and all other sons of Kingman, for that matter. We saw in France, Hedman throw his hat into the ring and to be exceptionally good 3-year-old colt. We've got Constantinople, who might improve. We'll see his form boosted later on. And the horse you've mentioned, Japan, probably my idea at the moment of the best horse in Ireland or England.
I think so.
But the best horse in Europe, I think, is the French Derby winner. But we'll get onto that later on.
We will get onto that later on. He's a pretty good horse in his own right. We shouldn't take anything away from him. I mean, his overall time was the fastest time for 5 years or so, wasn't it, in an Irish Derby, because he got his own way out in front and he could run a good time.
Tells you they go too slow.
A good speed figure of 119.
Normally.
Yeah, they normally go quite steady in the Irish Derby, don't they?
That's why I did that slope. So the takeaway for people that ride the Curragh is that because the back straight slants down, you've got to go as fast as the pacemakers in that to be going even pace. So if
you can't go and chase them up the hill.
But because the jockeys don't adjust correctly for the layout of the track. The track's got this bizarre uphill run into the home straight as well. The jockeys tend to not want to make their effort uphill, and then by the time they get into the straight, it's too late. And overall, races over 10 and 12 of the Curragh often favour front runners, particularly when those front runners steal 3 lengths at the start of the race. So. It's a very interesting facet of the Curragh. The races on the round track almost appear like they're running on a ridge, a big track bias on the inside. It's not really the case, I don't think. I think it's more a function of pace and the way that races tend to be run around that circuit. Because of its layout, the Curragh over 10 and 12 is very much a front runner's track unless you get a big field and a competitive pace, which often in these good quality races you don't.
No.